Good evening, I'm Larry Hunter. I can remember when my parents, every Sunday, I should say at church, we would get the weekly offertory envelopes. You may recall what those looked like. There was a box of them. They had numbers on them and dates. And I was always looking forward to placing those in the plate for my family. It was a great honor, so I thought. But I also recall noticing that not all of the families used envelopes, but gave cash. And I remember looking at that, and it started puzzling me. And I asked my dad once, I said, is our gift better or more special than the others? And he immediately said, no, they're all the same. And then he paused again and says, but the only difference is that our family promised Father Baskerville, that was our rector at the time, and the church, that we'd give a certain amount of money to support the church and at a cost to run that church every year. So we made a pledge, as he explained to me, and a commitment. And that was my earliest memory of how our family and how you can support your church. I, of course, asked, well, should I make a pledge? And my father kind of smiled and said, why don't you just go ahead and give what you can each Sunday, and we'll start with that. A few years after that, as I got older, there was a program that the church offered. It was a summer Bible study. It was 2 weeks in the beautiful Santa Cruz Mountains. And by the way, I grew up in California, so it wasn't like I'm traveling across the country, but I wanted to participate in that program. And so my parents made a commitment, as they explained to me, and I made a pledge, excuse me, pledge to go. And our church was very clever. So the parents would make a pledge, a commitment for their child to go, and they decided that in order to engage the children in this program and preparing for the program, each week the children during the coffee hour would go to a table set up by Mr. and Mrs. Gibson, and for instance, I would give $1 or $2, thinking that this was going to cover the cost of my 2 weeks in the Santa Cruz Mountains. But it was very clever, because what it did, the children saw there was a program in which they were going to participate. The parents made a commitment and a pledge, and so did the child. And each Sunday, I gave something towards that commitment. In exchange, they did write down what I paid, and they gave me a piece of candy. So there was a little quid pro quo there for me, but I remember that lesson. I remember that lesson very clearly. And it has been something, a discipline that I've used in my life of charitable giving ever since. When it comes to my giving here at the church and my relationship with God, I know that the plan is for us to share our love, God's love, with each other. And that, of course, is part of my spiritual journey, sharing God's love with you, with anyone that I meet. We, as Zach talked about today, that we are all the image of God. I have always given out of my personal need to sustain and feed that spiritual journey. My gifts of time and money, as a parishioner of St. James for about 28 years, I've given time by serving on various committees in various ministries, the music committee, grants, the welcome and greeters committee, the Friday dinner program, St. Jamesians, usher corps, lay readers, and most recently the rector search committee. And each of those committees or programs or ministries in which I've served, of course I've given time, but I also understood the ongoing need of a financial commitment to fund those programs. And I think in those 28 years, if not most of them, if not all, During good and bad times, I have made such a commitment. These programs are, as we all know, or learn to know, are vital to the existence and function of this church. And it is so very important that we let Zach and the vestry and our fellow parishioners have an idea of what we can do in the coming year. And that's why I make the commitment that I do. And there are many ways and opportunities to serve here, as we all know. And Marisa pointed out in the bulletin, you talked about invitations or information, but it's also an invitation to all of us to participate in something. Find that something that burns in your soul, something that appeals to you and that will feed your spiritual journey. And therefore, I invite you to please make your commitment to St. James, this church, so we can continue in our mission to share God's love with each other. Thank you.